Hey, what's going on everyone? Hux21 here, back with another Splinterlands video. So as you probably know at this point, Splinterlands recently changed the battle mechanics where you can now get 3 rule sets per battle. It's been a topic of conversation. It's certainly taken some adjusting to. But one thing I've noticed is that we've moved more and more to a system where those who can think about the game, analyze the battle rule sets, and then execute are set up to succeed now more than ever. And I'm going to walk you through 4 battles, show you my thought process, why I picked the teams I did, and they're all going to be 3 rule set battles. And one thing I've noticed is that I'm now using cards that I previously sort of ignored. Just to show you an example, there's actually no battles using this card because all of the ones I've used him in haven't been that interesting, but I've used the Gargoyle Devil more than ever. The reason being, now that you have more rule sets or more opportunities to have range only, for example, this close range becomes super valuable. So I've been playing him. I used to never. I would say I probably played the Gargoyle Devil up until this past week, maybe once or twice total. And in the last week, I bet I've played him, at least 5 times. All in those weird range-only rule sets, where all of a sudden close range becomes the most valuable skill. So having a neutral that has close range can win you some of those matches. We don't have any of those today, but we do have some very interesting battles that I'm going to walk through. But before I get into it, I am Hawks21, and if you are interested in Splinterlands content, you have come to the right place. I cover it in depth here. If you stick around throughout this video, you'll see how deep into the strategy I get, and I think you'll be able to learn something. If that interests you, it would be awesome if you could take a second to subscribe to the channel. I would just love it if you'd be able to come in and join my community. Okay, so let's get into it. This first one, is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. I'm going to show you a couple different routes you can take to set up your team to do this. Number 1, I like to just think about the first 2 rule sets as a basis, right? Just to get your head around what's going on. And then once you come up with an idea of what you want to do, you then factor in the 3rd. And you say, okay, wait, because of what's going on here, what I thought about here doesn't make any sense. So how can I tweak what I was thinking about here to take into account, in this case, reverse speed? So what do you notice here? All monsters have return fire. All monsters have thorns. Your brain immediately says, what? I have to play magic, right? I don't want to play melee because then all of my monsters will get thorned to death. I don't want to play range because they'll all get returned fire to death. When you see these 2 together, within 5 seconds, right, you say, I want to play magic. I need to play magic. Oh, what do you know? Earth's available. Obsidian +1 magic. I'm going to play Obsidian magic. Hold on. If you can come up with that thought process that quickly, what do you think your opponent's going to be thinking? They're going to be thinking the same exact thing as you. So take a second. Now that these types of abilities can be combined, right? This looks confusing, but this match is not very confusing. You have to basically play magic. So there's 2 ways to go about it. You spam magic, you toss out a bunch of magic, or you just create the perfect lineup to defend against the inevitable magic that's coming, right? So my opponent here did exactly what I was originally thinking, what you were originally thinking when you saw this rule set. They brought slow magic. So for me, I took a second and I said, all right, I know what my opponent's going to play. Can I play a better version of that? No, I couldn't. I don't have, Failed Summoner. I don't have some of the cards that I was expecting to be played that could, set my lineup apart. So what could I do instead? I could prepare for the lineup I knew was coming, given the combination of these two rule sets. That started with Wraith, obviously, giving me Void Armor. And then the two Magic Reflect monsters I had available. So Zenith Monk, Blinding Reflector. And then every other monster I played was all just about keeping the Monk and the Blinding Reflector alive. That's it. This right here, the Brightwing, was all about the Repair plus the Resurrect. I mean, it even has a Swiftness, right? So I'm bringing something that goes against this rule set. Right here, Truth Speaker, giving some shield to go along with the Void Armor. Also healing and cleansing because I expected a Dr. Blight. Then you bring another Repair, again, because we have Void Shield, so we're going to just keep repairing the shield as these guys are reflecting back. And then I brought the Jhin just sort of as a, assuming we were going to get potentially some Magic Reflect, I wanted to have some triage back here to keep the Brightwing and the Jhin alive. So I figured I could completely disregard this reverse speed. I brought two speed manipulations because I basically knew exactly what my opponent was going to be playing. All right, let's get into the battle. You'll see exactly what I mean. We are just going to demolish them with Return Fire. Not Return Fire, Magic Reflect. They have triages and everything. Doesn't matter. There's one down. Here we get the Resurrect. Brings the shield back. And we'll just keep Magic Reflecting. Again, I didn't really bring an attack-focused team. There's no one here where I'm going to sort of, strongly come at my opponent to quote-unquote eliminate my opponent. I'm just letting them eliminate themselves because I knew what they were going to play. Before when you couldn't get these sort of as limiting of combinations of these to where like everything points to playing Magic, stuff like this you couldn't really do, right? You couldn't fully predict what your opponent was likely going to play. But now that you can, right? I mean, this was obvious. So not every battle I show is going to be sort of exactly like this. It's just going to require a second level of thinking given the third rule set. I'm going to show you how I approached each of those situations. This one was clearly obvious what my opponent was going to play. Let's defend against it. Okay, next, this one's kind of a fun one. So, okay, what do we have here? We have the new only monsters with ranged attack, maybe used in battle. We also had Rise of the Commons, so that was limiting, and then no shield. Okay. I went through each of the lineups because there's a very limited amount of cards you can play, right? Some of these splinters, there was only like 3 cards I could even play, given only range and only common or rares. I played around with some lineups, and I realized I couldn't really put a good team out there, right? I could put basically Molten Ash Golem and then Gargoyle Devil. That was sort of the best team I was going with. So then I thought, okay, given these available splinters, what's the best possible team? And obviously, it's a Fernheart team that will give all of the ranged monsters close range. So then I said, okay, is it possible for me to put something together to beat that Fernheart team? And quickly, I realized, no, I could not beat that Fernheart team. So I kind of just ignored that Fernheart team. And the reason why I did that was because if my opponent plays Fernheart, I'm going to lose. So there's no point in me stressing about Fernheart or trying to set up a Fernheart team. If my opponent plays Fernheart, I accept the loss, I move on. The best way for me to, create a chance for me to win is to plan for what if, like me, my opponent does not have Fernheart. So as I was going through and looking at the very limited amount of monsters available, I sort of realized at most you're going to get 1, maybe 2 close-range monsters in total. That's it. More likely, what's going to happen is they're going to play 1 close-range monster and then fit as many small ones as they could in the back. So with that in mind, I kind of realized all I need to do is get rid of the close-range monster as quickly as I possibly could, and then clean up the little guys as they move to the front. So what I decided to do was a nice Yasik Tinderlock last stand play. Just knowing Tinderlock's going to do a ton of damage, is going to be really fast, and is going to increase the chances that I can eliminate this frontline monster really quickly. And I knew once I eliminated this frontline monster, it was going to be really difficult for whatever was left in the back to do enough damage to get rid of the Tinderlock before all the monsters were pulled to the front line and could no longer attack. So that was my thought process, right? Get rid of the close range monster, get these guys who can't attack into the front. And you can see how that played out. This was a pretty quick battle. You know, pretty fast, up to 15. We got 2 misses, which was nice. But it wouldn't have mattered either way, right? 2 shots, and now they're only down to 1 monster who can attack, and I only need 1 attack to eliminate here. I'm hitting for 5, it only has 5 health. I knew these cards in the back were going to be relatively low mana, relatively low health. So with this 5 attack, it was more than likely I was only going to need 1 shot to eliminate each one of them and pull the next one forward. So that's all I needed. And now no one else can attack. Finish the job. Easy. Okay, 2 more. So now, you get some very funky ones like this. Think about how miserable this setup is. Thorns and melee only, together, right, is horrible. So what do I think when I see that? I think, all right, where's my Rooney, right? Where are my melee monsters that... where are my melee monsters that have Reflection Shield? That won't take this Thorns damage. Oh wait, that's an opportunity monster. Oh wait, Reflection Shield is an ability. Back to basics, all monsters lose all abilities. So what do we know? We know that you have to play melee. You can only attack from the first position because there's no abilities, right? So there's no sneak play coming. There's no opportunity play coming. There's no reach play coming unless you do it via summoner, as you can see. So you basically know in the front, you're just going to have 2 monsters facing off with each other. They're going to hit, take Thorns damage. The other monster's going to go, hit, takes Thorns damage. So you got a lot of math to do because you might not necessarily want to hit that often. That's kind of the calculus I was doing here. I was like, first thought was I want to bring some really fast monsters. And the reason being, maybe my opponent will miss, right? Well, do I want them to miss? Do I want them to hit? That's what we have to figure out. Then the math came, okay, do I bring a Lux Vega? Do I bring a Kelia to get the shield and the speed? Or do I bring Possibilis, which will allow 2 of my monsters to attack, right? So I'm always going to have 2 monsters attacking. They're only going to have 1. Plus 2 health is effectively like almost a little bit like a shield. Not quite, but it can basically 1 Thorns damage I can eat up. Ultimately, I decided to go with the Possibilis. Even though I was going to have 2 monsters taking Thorns damage at once. And the reason for that was I had enough monsters I could get out that 1 had greater than a 2 attack. So it was going to hit for more than the Thorns damage it was going to take. So that math works in my favor. The second thing was they had a lot of shield. So I wasn't going to play monsters here that didn't have shield. As you can see, outside of the Fiend, which I just tossed in there, all of my monsters have significant amounts of shield. Not significant, have a shield, right, at least. So like the Uraeus, once it would potentially get to the second position, it would hit, it would go, it would attack. The Thorns damage would knock off its one shield. So my math here was, I need to bring monsters with shield, and I need to bring monsters that hit for more than 2. If I don't bring monsters that hit for more than 2, they are not worth it. And I actually don't want them attacking. But in this case, the more attacks were good because I was doing more damage than I was taking. See, that miss actually, those misses aren't that bad. You know, I missed a bunch here, but now we see I'm doing 4, taking 2. Doing 3, taking 2. Doing 4, taking 2. Doing 3, taking 2. And so I'm just able to whittle my opponent because I'm doing more damage to them than they are doing to me per turn. It's going to be the same thing here. Now both of them, and I get a trample, right? So that's another additional attack I had to think about. Did I want that happening? And again, I'm going to be doing, every time I attack, I'm going to be doing more damage than the Thorns I take. So it's always going to be worth it in my opinion. And that's what you see here, right? So I'm going to take 2 Thorns on this. You know, unfortunately, I'm only taking away the 1 shield. So in that case, it wasn't worth it, but it tees it up for my next person who's going to hit for 4. And at this point, right, I have too many monsters left because the math was just constantly working in my favor. And it's going to end up being kind of close, right? So that's why, like, when you're in a battle like this, the math is so important. You know, and we squeeze it out. Only my Uraeus left. You know, so I hope this sort of, we have 1 battle left, but I hope this gives you an idea of the types of things you need to be thinking about when there's 3 rule sets. It really, a lot of them limit the amount of monsters you can play. So you need to pay attention not only to what you can play, but also think about it in the context of what your opponent can play. And this one is the perfect example of that. So for this one, magic only 2 splinters. So very easy for me to take a look at what exists in Modern, what can be played, and what some of the options are. So what's the key card here? Take a second to think about it. The key card is the Oceanus. Why is the key card the Oceanus? You can only play magic. We know exactly where the magic attacks are going to go, which is the Snipe position. And out of these 2, out of the commonly owned cards, the Oceanus is the only magic monster that has phase. So it's the only magic monster you're going to be able to put out here. Again, commonly owned. There might be some untamed that I'm not thinking of, but in this context, I'm just going to assume that my opponent has a pretty standard deck. The most common, or the only magic monster with phase that can be put out is the Oceanus. So what that means is, your first idea, which is what my opponent did, was you want to protect the Oceanus at all costs. You want to have the Oceanus around last, because it is going to be the most important card. When in reality, what you actually want here is you want your opponent to be targeting the Oceanus, because it is the Oceanus that gives you the ability to potentially evade attacks. So all of their monsters back here, we're going to be able to go after. All of my backline monsters are going to go at all of their backline monsters. And they can't dodge. There's really nothing they can do. On the flip side, their monsters are going to be attacking my Oceanus. So what are the support cards that I bring? I bring a blind. I want to increase my chances that the Oceanus dodges. I bring speed. Again, same thing. Increase the chances. I brought another blind, but mostly I brought a triage. So if my Oceanus gets hit, I can keep it alive. And then I brought a Dr. Blight, just because it's a great card. There was no particular reason. And so that's the thought process here, right? That's the mistake my opponent made. You put the key card in the wrong spot. In a lot of the battles that are this limiting, right? Think about how limiting this is. You know they have to play magic. There's no card they can play that isn't magic. And Snipe. So you know exactly where the magic attack is going to go. So all you have to do is take a second, think about that, think about the cards you can play, but not only that, think about the cards your opponent can play and build the best lineup based on that. So I think the game now requires an additional level of thinking, but if you're capable of that, if you learn the game, if you think about these things critically, you can put out lineups in these super limiting concepts, these super limiting combinations that your opponent just can't beat. And here you'll see the situation here. We'll get some misses. Miss, 1 miss, 2 miss, 3 miss, 4 miss. And my monsters cannot miss because they don't have a phase monster in the key position. They'll get the resurrect here, but you can see how this is going to go, right? I'm going to get some misses. They're just not. And so basically what I wanted to do too, I put the life leech monster in the first position because I wanted to maximize the time that that monster stayed alive. So the Oceanus is eventually going to eliminate that monster, but the life leech is just going to keep it around for at least an additional turn or two before the Jhin has to move up. And at this point, the misses have just piled up where, we just have way more attacking monsters. We're healing the Jhin, and when our Jhin does move up to the front line, which I believe will be in like 2 turns, it'll be in a much better state with a lot more support than their Jhin has. Because again, look at this super fast monster with flying and dodge and blah, blah, blah. Can't do anything against magic attack. And so here we go. Look at the state of our Jhin versus state of their Jhin. We only lost 1 monster because we put the key card in the right spot. That's all it took. The key card in the right spot. Okay, I'm going to stop it there. A little bit more in depth on the strategy side than it normally is. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Again, it wasn't like focused on one card or focused on one splinter. This was sort of how to think about these new 3 rule set situations. I think it creates a situation where the people who actually know how to play the game can thrive. And that's what I've seen thus far. This has been one of my most successful playing seasons. I'm having a lot of fun with it. Definitely took some adjusting, but now I'm in a situation where, you get 2 minutes or whatever it is to pick a team, or a minute and a half. For that first 45 seconds, I'm just thinking, right? It definitely changes the game. It changes sort of how you have to approach it. But I think it's for the better. The game has become more challenging. It's become more interesting. I personally haven't liked playing the actual battles this much in a really long time. So I welcome the change. I think it's good. Yeah, I have no complaints. Curious to hear what you guys think about it. So leave me a comment. What do you think about the 3 rule set setups? Again, I'm loving it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Greatly appreciate it. Gives me motivation to keep pumping out content for you guys. I'll have another rule set battle out shortly. I have a concept for one. I just need more battle examples to show you. So stay tuned for that. All right. Hope you're enjoying the game. Have a good one. I will talk to you soon.